Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public service announcement. For regular viewers and listeners of AWI Pod, please do not be offended, as this program contains good wrestling.
It's my life in the box in front of me. The guitar in my arms is the soul of me. You walk by, ask to see me lay face down.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 19 of War into Attitude. I am your host, Brent Piles, but as you know, I do not war to attitude all by my lonesome. I have got with me the ballroom brawling, disco dancing, dynamite stretching, intercontinental playboy. Folks, he's more over than dancing in a wrestling ring. At GA Wrestling, Glenn. Glenn, I got to ask you this. How do you feel about watching wrestling shows that took place in South Africa?
I don't know what happened between last week and this.
Spoiler alert, it went off a fucking cliff, didn't it?
That's put it mildly.
Like this Raw that we're about to review, not only was the wrestling bad and the promos were pretty much bad, even the production was bad. Like if WWE usually, if everything else failed, the wrestling bad, everything's bad. Usually the production is good, but this show, the production was total shit.
Well, we know who, but why he decided to put this out. It's a few weeks ago, he was going on about the bait and switch. WWF never bait and switch, unlike some other promotions. So, still not been able to really get to the bottom of what went on in WCW those weeks that he was going on about the bait and switch.
Yeah.
But this is the second time around. They advertised a Raw that was going to be the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw about 2 minutes of it.
Yeah.
They advertise this. Unless I have gone totally doolally over the last week,
which is a possibility, let's be honest.
That this Raw was coming from South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they said that.
They absolutely said that because they had the South African guy come out there and tell us, remember?
But no, this is South Africa via Muncie.
Yeah, via Muncie, Indiana, which we were in Muncie last week. And so I assume that this is where they did one live and then they recorded some stuff for this show. And they should have recorded more because all the semi-okay stuff from this show all came from Muncie. And all the really bad stuff came from whatever this house show was or whatever in South Africa. And we're not like disparaging the country of South Africa. I've never been there. I don't know if you have, Glenn.
No, I haven't. No.
And it's not their fault that this wrestling show was terrible. It's just WWE terribly produced this. And it was obviously a house show filmed earlier with shit that had been filmed earlier too. So I don't know how they threw all this shit together and decided, oh yeah, put that on TV because it was so bad. This was definitely the worst one we've watched from 97. It's probably the worst Raw I've ever watched, ever.
Yeah. I think that's a general consensus with this one. If you haven't watched it, people, we begged you on Thursday when we recorded the Cup of British Heritage to go watch those matches. This one, we're begging you not to.
We're going with what we did for the 1997 Slammy Awards. Listen to this review show. Don't watch it because, good God.
We will not be responsible for you watching this.
Rob, it's not our fault if you start watching this, okay? Don't blame me. I told you not to.
Yeah.
But yes, that is Raw is War. It's from April 14th, 1997. As we said, half the show is from Johannesburg, South Africa, and the other half is from Muncie, Indiana.
Via Saudi Arabia.
I forgot about that. They were everywhere. They also they have a thing at the beginning of this episode that lets you know that this episode is presented to you in its most complete form due to some production technical difficulties. But I wish this whole entire fucking show had been in technical difficulty because it was a mess.
This is the best they could do. They shouldn't have bothered.
No, I mean, they could have just thrown together like a best of show or anything would have been better than that.
That's right.
They've got Jim Cornette and Vince McMahon calling the action in the States. But Glenn, in the South Africa, we've got Jim Ross, which is all well and good. But with Jim Ross, Glenn, you got the motherfucking honky tonk man.
Why wouldn't you have? He's everywhere.
I fucking guess. And I thought that this would be like they did commentary later in the studio over this, but no, these motherfuckers are actually in South Africa. They flew the honky tonk man to South Africa.
Yeah, the only good thing about that is most of the time we couldn't hear them.
That is, yeah, almost all of the time you couldn't hear them. Yeah, that's a really good point. This is also a go-home show, Glenn, because the In Your House Revenge of the Taker pay-per-view is what we'll be reviewing next week. And that's coming up the Sunday after this. And so the two worst Raws we've seen have been go-home shows. The go-home show, the Royal Rumble, and this one here.
Yeah, there's a pattern there.
That's just insane to me. Like, especially one of them is your biggest show of the year, and you threw a shit show out there. Oh God, man. All right, well, the first match wasn't so bad. This one was from Muncie, a continuation of what we saw last week after LOD got slapped by the Godwins. The Legion of Doom will take on the Godwins. Not a bad match. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
It would have been fine if it wasn't for the fact that the Road Warriors decided that they weren't happy about doing a job for a couple of pig farmers with no selling everything.
Yeah,
and look doing it.
Yeah, I mean, Phineas hit a pile driver on Hawk. He completely no-sold it and then just knocked the fuck out of Phineas out of the ring. So it was probably weird for the Godwins because these Muncie, Indiana people loved the Godwins last week when they were fighting against the Bulldog and Owen, but they hated them this week against LOD. Crowd was really behind LOD, got a lot of big LOD chants during the match. It started off slow, but it started to get a little bit better toward the middle. I mean, a lot of big moves. I mean, Henry Godwin can really go. I never thought much of Midian or Phineas at all as a wrestler, but I always thought Henry Godwin could go. And obviously, a Hawk and Animal do what Hawk and Animal are going to do. So, but then we got a little interference, didn't we, Glenn?
We certainly did. Because they have to, don't they? Absolutely. I suppose because it's a go-home show, you have to have the Bulldog in there somehow.
Yeah. They come down to the ringside. They're going to hit Hawk in the back of the head with a championship belt, and the Godwins are going to be able to pick up the win here. This entire match was just to set up the pay-per-view match between these two teams for the tag team titles. That was all it was for.
I don't know how they managed to get on, seeing as their controller was somewhere in Saudi Arabia at the time.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what was going on with that. And then we go back to South Africa, Glenn, and we are going to get Hunter Hearst Helmsley taking on Double J. No, not that Double J. It's Double J, Jesse James.
Which sounded good on paper.
Yeah.
It even started off all right, but then all of a sudden, the commentary just failed.
Yeah.
And all you could hear was them bumping around a very wooden ring.
Yeah, a few screams from the crowd. I'm pretty sure there was a couple times, too, where you could hear them calling spots. When they were in the corners, I'm pretty sure you could hear Triple H calling a spot to Jesse James, which was pretty interesting. And the crowd wasn't really into this match. I mean, you'd get a couple yells every now and then, but basically it was us watching two guys wrestle with a lot of bang, boom, bang, boom, bang, boom. And and that was it.
When we talk on the British Heritage, UK Heritage, about how headlocks and arm bars and transitions work, there was a goddamn arm bar on for about 3 minutes in this match with no commentary,
and nobody trying to improve the position of the arm bar or try to get out of the arm bar. It was just basically here, lay here, and we'll take a minute to breathe.
Yeah. I don't know whether the referee sort of tips them off or something. We're having sound problems. Just stay where you are for the time being. We'll see if we can sort it.
And the thing about it is this match went on for 17 minutes. You're gonna show this on TV later. Why not edit the shit? I just didn't understand who the fuck watched this, edited it, and went, "Oh yeah, that's fine."
It's just, Hunter does his usual thing of the knee drop, but instead of following up with a pedigree, which he would normally do, now he goes into a chin lock, and they sit with that for about 2 or 3 minutes as well.
The commentary did come on just a little bit again in this match. It was just long enough for the Honky Tonk Man to tell us about how everyone says the Honky Tonk Man has a bad attitude, but I don't have a bad attitude. This Jesse James here has a bad attitude. And I guess he's going to be facing off Jesse James against the Honky Tonk Man's protege at the pay-per-view too. So they were kind of playing that up for the little bit that we did get to hear Honky speak. Yeah, the match didn't start too bad, like Glenn said, but went on far too long, and it was far too dull to not have any commentary during it. I was about to fall asleep during this thing. It wasn't not good.
It wasn't good.
Honky finally gets involved. He kind of trips Jesse James, and then, Triple H is able to hit a pedigree for the 1, 2, 3, and then trying to get in there, and they all start beating the crap out of Jesse James. Honky Tonk included. Honky Tonk then takes off his belt and acts like he's going to get into the ring to fight Jesse James because Jesse James got on the mic and challenged him to a fight. But then he just didn't get into the ring. So, and then I wrote in my notes, wow, that segment really made me want to buy the pay-per-view. And then, Glenn, they show us what is probably the most exciting things that's on this show is in between things like before commercials, they start showing us chicks in their bikinis from the Slammy Awards. And of course, we got to see Sable. So at least that helped the show a little bit.
It did. It did. It brightened my day up anyway.
And they kept saying, like, coming up. So, like, people were like, oh, maybe they'll show chicks in swimsuits. Maybe I'll hang around to watch this shit then.
Well, that was obviously the idea of it. Whoever edited it thought, we'll stick the swimsuits in there just to keep people interested.
Yeah.
Stop switching over to WCW.
That and we'll tell them Stone Cold Steve Austin's coming up next. That's the only way to keep them here at this point. Then they show like a video of Bret Hart cutting a promo, and they would frequently do these. I couldn't hear half of what he was saying. Like half of it came through, but half of it didn't. No,
again, this was gone. Obviously, this started off in Saudi Arabia. We were told that he was in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Then went via South Africa to finally get back to the US because he got lost in the ether somewhere.
Yeah, I must have got lost in the vortex because it was like sometimes he'd be talking like this, and sometimes he'd sound like this. It was fucking weird. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. The next matchup was another matchup that went far too long. It's Rocky Maivia taking on Savio Vega. Rocky did get a nice little pop from the South African crowd.
Yeah, it was strange this because if this had been in the US with the usual US production and everything, this would have been a fine match. But it looked like it had been filmed on somebody's 8mm handheld camera from back in the day.
It looked like we were watching a smut film. It looked like it was filmed with the camera they would use to make a 90s smut film. Is what it looked like.
Yep, exactly.
I was waiting for somebody named Gertrude to take her top off. That's what I thought was going to happen. It never did, though. They didn't have the white rappers with the Nation of Domination. I guess they said, we already paid for the fucking Honky Tonk Man to fly to South Africa. We ain't paying for them, too. And then I wrote, lucky for us, though, Glenn, is we got Ahmed Johnson promo during this match. And then I wrote, well, never mind, because that was really bad.
Okay, there's a lot of sort of rest holds and choke holds and that sort of thing in this one as well. Not a lot of good wrestling.
No, a lot of rest holds and not in a good way, like bad rest holds where you just kind of sit in the hold for 4 minutes, which is too long to sit in a hold when you're doing nothing. They decided at one point that Rocky was going to sit on the floor and Savio would massage his shoulders. Oh, sorry, no, it was the neck pinch. Yeah.
It went on for about 5 minutes.
And he did it so many times. I have in my notes, Glenn, and I have this in all capital letters. How many times is he going to put him in a fucking nerve hole?
Yeah.
Because fuck, man. Like apparently, Puerto Rico is a big place for nerve holds because Savio Vega was applying them vigorously in this one. Jesus.
I've got the note here. What happened to the commentary for this episode? Maybe JR and Hulky just fell asleep during this match.
That sounds about right. And no one would blame them. And again, This is a taped shit. You could have just thrown in commentary over the top of it. Why didn't you? Unless it aired with commentary, and now maybe they just show it on the network without commentary. But none of it made sense.
The sad thing about this as well is, in amongst all this absolute crap, Rocky Maivia does his first rock bottom.
You did, yeah.
Now, surely that should be saved for the pay-per-view.
Yeah. And he didn't even go for a pin either. He did it, and then he just popped right back up like he was gonna do a backbreaker. It was like those old the shoulder breaker. It's like those old days when we watched Shawn Michaels do a super kick and then pick somebody up for a lame ass fucking side suplex, and you're like, why didn't you just pin him after that cool move?
Yeah. Thank God that they both learn.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, move there.
Yeah, keep with those crap moves. So the last few minutes of the match wasn't so bad. Like what we said, like The Rock was doing a lot of moves. He did a kip up. He hit that rock bottom. He did like a dive off like a big splash off the top rope that almost got a pinfall. And this match wouldn't have been so bad if it had commentary, if it would have been about 8 minutes long and not 17 minutes long, you know?
Yeah.
So The Rock's going to go for that shoulder breaker, and eventually Vega's able to reverse it. He throws Rocky into the corner, and then he's able to roll him up, and with the use of the tights to win the match. So Glenn, guess what? The Nation of Domination is finally winning matches. That's 2 in a row, man.
Yeah. And of course, if the Nation's winning matches, they're going to have Ahmed Johnson come out to help against the beatdown. And did you notice they grow big 2x4s in South Africa, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the measurements of the 2x4 might be different in South Africa. That might be a 3x6.
Yeah, it was a huge lump of wood that he was wielding around. Well, says he could, he's not a weak man, you would say, Ahmed Johnson. For all his faults as a wrestler, he's not a weak man.
Yeah.
But there were times where he actually had trouble wielding that thing. It was so big and heavy.
It looked like one of those things that, like, if somebody has a deck that they use as like a, something to hold the deck into place. It looked like he ripped one of those off somebody's deck and said, "Oh yeah, this will work."
The support for the deck.
Yeah, the support. Yeah. Maybe Hacksaw Jim Duggan had never been to South Africa. He hadn't been to that particular arena, so had to improvise because he couldn't find a Hacksaw Jim Duggan 2x4 anywhere. So yeah, Savio Vega wins with a handful of tights. He doesn't win the Intercontinental Championship because it was a non-title match. Then they show us Sunny in her swimsuit, and that's of course how they're going to get us to try to stick around. It made me want to change the channel, but not in 1997.
No. Plus, they tell you that after the break, we've got Steve Austin coming up.
Yep, then that's another reason to stick around, because that's going to be the best thing on this entire fucking show.
Yeah.
And then they go back to South Africa. It must be cold there, Glenn, because they show Honky Tonk Man kind of bitching and moaning about how cold it is in South Africa. It's not that cold in Nashville, Tennessee, where he's from, I guess. I don't know if that's where he's from, but I'm guessing since he's a Honky Tonk Man, where else would he be from?
Yeah.
Besides Nashville. All right, and then they recap the whole Austin getting his match with Bret Hart at the pay-per-view because Psycho Sid got into a car accident. I love that. I still love that thing from Austin where he tells, Monsoon, you can either give me my match at the pay-per-view or you can kiss my ass. I ain't wrestling in your little match. I think that's so great. Then yes, Glenn, it's the best part of the show. We get an in-ring promo from Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes.
I didn't make any sound clips for this just because it wasn't. While it was a good promo, it wasn't one of Austin's best promos. It was pretty short too. I think this might have been something that they just threw in because they needed more. That might have been just something to amp up the crowd that they did, and they just kind of threw it on the show because they needed it.
Yeah, it was just all about nobody could hold it down any longer. He's gonna whoop everybody's ass, as he said. Yeah,
he says that Vince and Monsoon can't hold him back anymore. Talks about the upcoming match with Bret Hart at the pay-per-view. Says he's gonna kick his ass, win, lose, or draw. Wasn't, like I said, wasn't the best Austin promo. Still good, though, and still the best thing that was on this show. But that's not saying a whole lot.
No, well, it shows how much it was because it wasn't even worth a clip.
No, wasn't even worth it. I didn't make any sound clips for the show. That's how bad it was.
Most of the show, there was no sound.
Yeah, like even like I was gonna make one for the Bret Hart stuff, but you could barely hear him. I was gonna make one for the Ahmed Johnson stuff, but you could barely hear him. So it would have been a waste of time. It would have just been us going, I don't know what he said. Now we're back to South Africa, and we are gonna get Gold Dust versus the Sultan. I wish technical difficulties had cut 30 minutes off this show, but it didn't, unfortunately. Just cut out the commentary, unfortunately.
We got the Sultan versus Goldust with no commentary. Just what you need. Matches aren't exactly the best at the best of times.
Yeah.
And boy, did it show. Dustin Rhodes is one of those guys that can get a match out of a broomstick.
Right.
Considering who the Sultan is, this bad.
Yeah,
It
was not very good. Like, well, these guys can go. I mean, one of them is Dusty Rhodes' son, and one of them is the Samoan family guy. So they can all go. And I don't think, even if they had commentary, it wasn't going to add shit to this. Nothing about this was good. Except for when Goldust punched the Sultan 10 times in the corner, and then he kissed him.
Highlight of this segment. It got nothing to do with the match. This is a quote from Scott's blog of doom. The Sultan bows and gets some advice from the Iron Sheik on the floor. That advice: don't forget to tell Vince that you have kids that want to be wrestlers.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, Triple H and China hit the ring. They beat down Goldust. The Sultan joins in, and then they give him a spiked pile driver, and then the Sultan locks in the camel clutch. And yeah, that's what happened.
I loved it that they put up an ad for Sunday Night Heat that was the pre-show to the pay-per-view.
Yeah,
but obviously the commentators were supposed to be selling it, but they couldn't. They had no commentary, so it was just a few pictures sort of flashed by.
Yeah, and you're like, okay. I don't know what that means, but okay. And yeah, they show another Bret Hart video, and again, the sound isn't very good. He hates America. Was the gist of and then we got this is not a bad tag team match either. The Headbangers took on Mankind and Vader as we're back in Indiana. Vader gave Mosh a nice welcome to Monday Night Raw by cornering him in the corner and laying in some stiff punches to his body, finding out what the wrestling business is really all about.
I love it that at the start of this, Vince is supposed to be talking to South Africa. Now we know that there's no audio link to South Africa. So who's he talking to?
Nobody. He's talking to himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. The production of this whole goddamn thing was so ridiculous. This just I can't wrap my mind around how a company like WWF or WWF back then could have ever put something like this on TV. It's baffling to me. I'm baffled.
Thank God for Vader beating on Thrasher. He wasn't holding back. That was a good thing.
I like the part where they were all kind of Mankind was brawling with both the Headbangers on the ramp, and here comes Vader like a bull in a china shop, and he just runs everybody over, and they all just fell apart like it was like a movie. So I thought that was really good. I'm not sure how nobody got counted out during that scenario because they were outside for a long time. Like in New Japan, they do a 20 count, and they were outside for every bit of 20 seconds fighting. Lots of brawling and hard-hitting shit in this match. Mosh, who I didn't know did the whole Asuka spit thing, spit something into Mankind's eye. Do you know what it was, Glenn? I didn't see.
No, it's some sort of liquid, but it wasn't proper mist. I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
his headbanger mist, I suppose.
I don't remember the Headbanger spit and mist. Do you?
No, it's just one time.
Huh. It's lighter fluid. He spit lighter fluid in his eyes. God damn it.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mankind mistakes Vader as a headbanger puts a mandible claw on him.
Yeah, and they can't get him to break that mandible claw until Paul Bearer is able to pull him off finally. And then they're kind of talking about the match with the Undertaker between the Mankind and the Undertaker. That's going to be the pay-per-view for the title. And then we head back to South Africa, and the lights in South Africa are flickering, Glenn, and the sound of thunder comes through the crowd, and then we hear the voice of the Undertaker. He asks his creatures if they're prepared for what's ahead, for the end that is ahead this Sunday. And he says Mankind will come face to face with the fire and rays that is the Undertaker, and that he said that Mankind will never rest in peace, but he can burn in hell. And that was the best thing said in South Africa, because everything else said in South Africa I couldn't hear. So
that's because it was overdubbed. They weren't going to get a take to go to South Africa, so they got just a dub promo and played it to the crowd in South Africa.
Also, they mentioned about how we haven't seen him since he got his face burnt, so I think they were trying to keep him off TV until the pay-per-view, so people would have that anticipation of like, oh my god, what does this face look like? Then they show us some video of Sable in the upcoming Raw magazine, and I know why Brock Lesnar married her. Let's just say that. Then they show a bunch of the ladies from the Slammy competition, Miss Slammy competition, and Glenn, boy, the Attitude Era was live and well at this point, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Maybe they looked at the ratings of this show and they went down there. Oh, they jumped high there, didn't they? Maybe we should get more scantily clad women on TV. I think that gets the job done.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah.
It did.
If you talk to most guys at your age, you ask the question, was it bra and panties matches, or was it the wrestling you were interested in? I know which way most of them would go. So
it was the wrestling, but also those bra and panties matches were a sure good cherry on top when I was 15 years old. Here's a true story from my childhood, Glenn. In the year 2000, right, WCW was not good in 2000, and I wasn't really paying attention to it, Glenn. But there was one certain superstar on WCW Monday Nitro or Thunder that I would always turn the TV on to look at, and that was one Stacy Keibler. And she had a wedding gown match with, Daphne, which RIP to Daphne. And I ordered that Bash of the Beach pay-per-view, not to see anything else that happened on that pay-per-view, but Stacy Keibler in the wedding gown match. That's the only reason why I ordered that pay-per-view. Yeah. Oh, man, Lord Jesus. She was one of my favorite things about wrestling in the year 2000. Then they show the South African guy from last week, Glenn.
Just what you need. Some jobbing actor who's got a very fake South African accent going to South Africa and pretending to be some sort of military leader.
Yeah, he tells us that he's got some new guys that he's going to be bringing to the WWF. And then he starts saying, like, some things that your grandma would say to you, like, if the going gets tough, the tough get going. And if the road is long, then you got to take the short road or some shit like that. He says that they will prove that might is right. I'm not making this up either. At first I thought he said white is right. And I said, hold on a second. He didn't say that, right? And I fast forwarded. He didn't say white is right. He said might is right, which is bad, but better than white is right. And then he also said, if there's a will, there's a way. So he sounded a lot like your grandmother. That guy fucking sucks.
It's no wonder he wasn't there for long.
Well, Glenn, I got to give you a little information on this guy because I looked it up, man, and I had to give you a little information. He's actually never had a wrestling match. Never was a wrestler. He is actually a South African man, though, Glenn. He is South African. He was born in Cape Town, South Africa. His name is Robin B. Smith. He got into professional wrestling when Bret Hart visited South America, and he met Smith. And Bret Hart recommended him for a role as a manager in the World Wrestling Federation, even though he had never been a wrestler. So Smith made his debut in Tennessee in the USWA He managed. He went under the name The Commander, and he managed the Truth Commission. And then he would be in the WF for around 9 months before they get rid of him and bring in the Jackal. So yeah, he was in a lot of movies in South Africa, though. He's been in like over 40 movies. So, and he's currently still alive, 68 years old. So Robin B. Smith is the man's name.
Oh, that's something, I suppose.
Which I knew you were pining for that information, Glenn. So you're welcome.
To him. Yes.
And then, Glenn, luckily, finally, gloriously, we're at the main event of the show. And I'm not saying that because the main event is good. I'm just saying that because, thank God, this is almost over. Because the main event isn't good either. It's Ahmed Johnson versus Crush. And good Lord, bad news, Glenn. This whole Ahmed Johnson Nano D feud is still in full swing. I was going to say that it's still going hot, but it's not going hot. So I'm going to say this feud is still going cold because it's not good.
Yeah. No. There's a lot of in and out the ring, not a lot of action. You get JR trying to sell it as best he could, which was fine. But then you get a break and come back, and JR's decided to go home.
Yeah. It was like the commentary was in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
It dropped in when you didn't need it. It dropped out when you really, really needed it. I also thought it was funny, like in the Ahmed Johnson earlier, JR was like, "Oh, Ahmed Johnson, I see you got your 2x4 with you." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You gonna bring that thing to the ring tonight?" And he's like, "You think I'd come out there without it?" And JR's like, "No, I don't think you would." And then Ahmed comes out here, and guess what he don't have? His fucking 2x4. Must have lost it.
Yeah. But we find out that actually JR just got a piss break and he's back and he's yelling and screaming, even more excited than ever.
It was like before a commercial break, too. And he's like, hold on, wait a second, hold on a second. And then we come back and I'm expecting to see something and it's nothing. There's nothing. Nothing's happening.
Yeah, then it comes back again and it's a sleeper from Crush. Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't know what he was. He must have been watching a different match.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually Savio Vega makes his way down to the ring. I will say that Ahmed Johnson did do some cool stuff in this. There was one point where he like flipped himself over the top rope and then he hit like a really cool scissor kick to Crush. Which was cool. Savio Vega comes out here and then there was one point where like Ahmed's got Crush down the ground. He hits the ropes and he goes for an elbow. And I don't know if Crush was supposed to roll out of the way and he didn't roll far enough, or if Ahmed just totally whiffed it, because Ahmed literally brought like this whole right side flat on Crush's fucking forehead.
Yeah.
And then right after it, Crush got up and gave him a quick pile driver. So I'm assuming Crush was supposed to roll further and he just didn't roll far enough. I'm guessing. It just looked really funny. And I'm sure it didn't feel good for Crush to have all of Ahmed Johnson's weight coming down his fucking forehead.
Yeah. It's back to the sleeper again. Just in case we've forgotten about the sleeper, just to extend it a little bit longer.
He does it better than Bruce the Barber fucking Beefcake, though. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Then finally, Crush sets up for the deadly heart punch, but Ahmed counters it. He's actually been scared after all these months. He's finally worked out what Crush's finishing move is.
It took a while. Fuck.
And rolls him up. Now, folks, anybody who's been with us on this journey from the first Raw of 1997, hold on to your hat, because Ahmed Johnson rolls up Crush for a clean win against the Nation of Domination.
So he had to fly all the way to South Africa before he could finally get a nice clean win over the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
Finally. And then after that, Farouk gets on the mics and he tells Ahmed Johnson he doesn't care if it's South Africa or North Africa. The Nation of Domination is going to get rid of him. He says he's sick and tired of Johnson's crying, and he challenges Ahmed Johnson to a match where he has to beat Crush and Savio, and then he will get to face Farouk. And if he can defeat all three of them, Farouk will disband the Nation of Domination. And goddamn, I fucking hope so, because I'm sick of this fucking feud. I want it done. I want it over with. They didn't say when that was going to happen, but that's going to happen at some point, and not anytime soon, because Farouk still got his arm in a sling. So
yeah, I don't think we see much of the Nation going forward from here.
Well, I know eventually they're gonna break into a different sort of group than what they are now. So I guess we'll see what happens. And that's how the show goes off the air. Glenn, you going thumbs up or thumbs down?
No thumbs.
No thumbs. Good God.
Thumbs.
That fucking
Bad. No thumbs at all.
it doesn't even deserve thumbs. That's how bad
Just
it was.
thumbs down.
That's how bad it was. Good Lord. Literally, it made my head hurt. I looked at the results of it before I actually watched it, and I told Rachel, I said, "Oh no, this isn't gonna be good." And then
This is not good.
and then I watched it, and it was worse than I anticipated. It was worse than I thought it would be.
Yeah, well.
Because we like to watch bad wrestling sometimes. It's what we do. But it was just bad. It wasn't even bad that it was good. It was just bad.
This was a bad wrestling.
Yeah.
It was bad everything.
It was bad TV, bad
It was
production.
it was badly put together. It was badly produced. It was just a total. Well, I said it when I messaged you about it. Just a total clusterfuck.
Yeah. It was
And that's what it was.
It was the drizzling shits. But Glenn, make sure you join us next week. We'll be having a look at In Your House, Revenge of the Taker. We'll see LOD battle Owen Hart and Bulldog for the tag team titles. Savio Vega versus Rocky Maivia. Again, hopefully in better circumstances this time. That's going to be for the Intercontinental Championship. Jesse James, Double J, is going to be spending his day working hard on the go because he's going to have to take on the Honky Tonks Man mystery opponent. We're going to see Stone Cold Steve Austin battle Bret Hart again. And we're going to see a barn burner of a WWF Championship match between The Undertaker and Mankind. Glenn, who do we need to plug before we get out of here?
A special thanks to UTT Rob and Danny this week for the shout out that they gave us on their show. Gator Golf is sadly coming to the end there. Next week will be the final, or this week.
Yeah.
This week will be the final. I think there's only a few more of Unbooking the Tankatory, the life and times of the hardest man in wrestling, Tank Abbott. Bang Bang podcast with Andy. The British version of a work in progress. Give him a listen. DDT with DC and Doc. And for those sci-fi fans out there, it's the Doctor Who podcast with Danny and Si.
That's right. I listened to the Snow Brawl episode that the Unbooking the Territory just did. Excellent. Make sure you give that a listen. I love the uniqueness of the shows that they look at, and this Snow Brawl show is on my Google Drive, so I can watch it as well. I'm gonna have a look at it later too. So yeah,
it's on YouTube as well. So I'm probably gonna go and have a look and see if I can watch that.
Yeah, I mean, I love their show. They do really, really great stuff.
It sounded that bad that it's right up our street.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, it's WCW. It's probably going to work for me. It usually does. Make sure you check out our other ventures. Mayor of Superstars. We watched WrestleMania 9, part 1 of WrestleMania 9 this week, which not to toot our own horn, but I think that's one of the better shows that we've done in the time that we've all been working together. It's really, really good. So give that a listen.
For me throwing my equipment around.
Other than it sounding like we were in the sub that exploded searching for the Titanic when Glenn's shit all fell apart. It was all well and good. And make sure you give a couple UK Heritage a listen. I think we've only got 3 more episodes of that thing left, and then we're going to get to the life and times of Psycho Sid / Sid Vicious / just Sid. The Man of the Millennium, I think is what they called him in WCW, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And also make sure you check out Sportswire Radio. Give our buddy Thomas Bryce a follow. I think Thomas Bryce is in a wrestling feud right now. I saw some promos on Instagram. My favorite is when he said he got the guy's medical records, and he said, according to your medical records, you are 100% P-word. And I thought that was great. That was perfect. So shout out to Thomas Bryce. That was amazing.
Cutting promos in a graveyard. Excellent.
That's absolutely amazing. So shout out to Thomas Bryce. Check out Sports Radio. And of course, give our third member of this podcast team, the mayor of Canton, a follow. He does a meal with the mayor of Wednesday where he tries fast food, and he's fucking insane because he's going to go to a SummerSlam and then drive 3.5 hours home and not stay in a hotel like a sane person. That's crazy. Like Glenn, if you did that, at least you'd be riding the train home. This motherfucker is gonna drive.
Yeah, I know. And God, I wouldn't want to drive. I certainly, after Cash at the Castle, the last thing I'd want to do is drive for 3.5 hours.
Oh no, yeah, not a chance.
All I wanted to do was go in the pub.
Right, right, right. But anyway, that's gonna do it for us. Now the only thing left for us to do is for Glenn to say goodbye.
Goodbye.